guys, welcome back to another Sims 4 speed build. It's CVSEYBUILDS here, and today we are building a 100% base game suburban family home in Willow Creek. So if you guys are new to my channel, or maybe you guys have never even heard of me before, or maybe you guys came here from Instagram, you'll know that this is actually my first video ever that I'm recording with a voiceover. I've done speed builds in the past, but I usually have background music for those. But I recently took a poll on my Instagram, and you guys voted that you actually like to hear voiceovers a little better than background music. So today, I've decided to try it out. So I hope I don't disappoint, and I hope it's not too boring, since this is my first one that I've ever made. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and yep, stick with me till the end for some nice fly-through shots of the house. And yeah, I guess we'll just talk about the build that I ended up doing here. So like I said, this is a 100% base game build, which means you don't need to have any packs in The Sims 4 to play this aside from the base game. I actually like to build base game houses a lot just because they're easier for me. The catalog is a lot smaller versus playing with a bunch of different packs and stuff, whereas like there's just so many items throughout all the packs. And yeah, so base game houses are my favorite to build just because they're quick and easy. I can sift through the catalog a lot quicker, and it's a big challenge as well just because the base game, as most of you guys know, is relatively limited, so there's not too much to go on, which is actually why I like to do these quite often, just to challenge myself and to also familiarize myself with the base game items. Just a little fun fact about me: I've been playing The Sims 4 since I was in like 1st or 2nd grade, so since like the very first Sims game came out. Of course, before I was more into gameplay, but after being a Sims player for so many years, it's like I was so addicted to getting all of the new packs and stuff. That would always be the first thing I would ask for on my birthday and such. So I actually never really even tried to do too many builds. Even when I first started building with just the base game, I was always using like a billion packs until I finally started uploading everything to the gallery, which is how I started my Instagram. And yep, if you guys aren't following my Instagram, that's originally where I started uploading all of my builds. You guys can follow me at CVSEYBUILDS. It's spelled CVSEYBUILDS on Instagram. And that's pretty much where I started uploading all my builds for the first time until I started gaining a following, which is why I am now on YouTube, because you guys requested videos. So here I am. So thank you guys for all your support and making this possible, because I never even dreamed of even making a YouTube. So I am here today because you guys liked the content, and I hope I can continue to make you guys happy with my posts. Anyway, so back to what I was saying. So here is just a fully base game house. I was trying to go for kind of a warmer tone exterior here, which is super funny because I just realized I post a lot of brown houses, at least on my Instagram. You guys will know exactly what I mean if you guys go on my Instagram right now. I have so many neutral toned houses, but for some reason I'm always incorporating browns into them, which is hilarious because I actually don't like the color brown, but for some reason I'm always building with this color. And look, even the fence here, I think I ended up changing it to white just because I was like, ugh, that's just way too much brown. But the good news is, the inside of the house, I actually end up changing the interior. So the outside of the house is pretty brown, but on the inside, we end up going for a lighter color. And even the flooring is brown on the inside, we end up changing it to a pretty neutral toned wood. So I know it looks very, very brown based right now, but we do fix that later in the video. So now I'm just putting in a little fenced yard here. I was having trouble with the fencing just because I don't know if it's the update, but whenever I tried to move the house around, it would delete the fencing around the house. So I had to fix that a couple of times. And then if you're wondering what I'm doing here with the lower fencing, I usually like to plan out where I'm going to be putting my landscaping and my plants. So those are just my little planters that I like to place down. But one of my biggest tips when building that I had to learn way later in the game, I used to not do this at all, and then I would end up with really, really wonky interiors for my houses, is not laying down the floor plan immediately. And then what sucks is when you end up putting down the landscaping, and then the interior of your house, like you need to change like the size of the house or whatever, it sucks because then you end up having to delete a bunch of the exterior landscaping, even if you really, really like it, just so everything actually fits in your house. But this build specifically was one of the very first times I got it right on the first time. Usually I end up having to change something after the fact, but this house that I made, or the space that I created, just ended up working out with what I had in mind. So this house ended up being, I think, 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. So there's 1 bedroom on the first floor, and then there's 2 bedrooms on the second floor, and then a bathroom on the second floor as well. So here, let me just get you started on this freaking garden path. So it looks fine here now that I'm rewatching the video, but for some reason when I was building it, I just didn't like the shape. I think I wanted it to be more round, but the stones were just not looking right to me. So you guys are going to see me completely delete all of these stones after moving them a bajillion times and then creating a brand new path. So that happens a lot for me. And if you guys are wondering where these stones came from, these are actually in the debug menu. So these will be accessed using the debug cheat. And if you guys want to know how to access that, all you have to do is enter your Control-Shift-C to enter your cheat window, and then you're going to enter the bb.show live edit objects, all one word, and then you look up the word debug, and then this entire menu of hidden items will pop up. So if you guys are wondering where those garden stones came from, that is from the debug menu. So now I'm just working on some terrain paint around the house. I actually used to not do too much terrain paint when I first started building, just because I just never thought of using it before. But if you guys are new to building, or maybe you want to improve your builds and you don't use terrain paint, I highly recommend you guys doing that, just because it makes the builds look 100%, well, maybe not 100%, but it definitely makes your builds look a lot more realistic this way versus not having terrain paint at all. So that's why I ended up adding a little bit of terrain paint around some of the edges of the house, as well as like the paths and the garden stones. It just adds a little bit more realism. And if you guys are wondering what that little path there leading up to the house is, that is a little carport there. So I do end up putting a car there, but I think I ended up switching. Yes, I ended up moving these stairs to the front of the house because I ended up liking the little planters, or the little climbing planters that are here in the debug menu. You guys are going to see me struggle with that in a bit as well, because when you try to place items that are 2 tiles wide or 1 tile wide in between foundations, it kind of tries to snap to the grid. So if you guys ever had trouble with that, just move the foundation away, place the item down, and then move the foundation back, and you should be fine. So now I think I'm just working on some of the landscaping. I think I had a little bit of trouble here, just because although I do like to do some landscaping, but I don't consider myself very good at it. So right here I'm just adding some exterior lights, and then I think I moved back into landscaping, or maybe I didn't. I can't really remember what I was doing for this part of the video. Is this a landscaping? Oh yeah. Okay, so now I'm just adding trees, adding some just different elements to the outside of the house to make it look a little bit more homey. And like I said, another building tip: if you guys want your builds to look more realistic, definitely do not take for granted the terrain tool. Not the terrain tool. I actually don't really use the terrain tool too much, but the terrain paints and also like foliage and landscaping. It makes your builds look so much prettier. And even if you don't know how to, or you're scared to like experiment, definitely recommend doing it, or just at least experimenting with it anyway, because it does make the builds look so much more realistic and a lot more homey. So yeah, play around with it until you find something you like. You guys are going to see me struggle with this outdoor area as well. I decided to keep it simple and stick with these little bushes with, like, I think I changed them, yep, to little white flowers. So and then you guys will see here I am extending the little outdoor backyard area. And then I end up adding like this really pretty little garden space on that open side of the house. Not right here. I think I ended up moving it to the other side. But for the pool area, we just had like a seating area, and then a little barbecue pit I think I added there as well. And then we're just going to do a little bit more landscaping along the side of the house. I usually like to fill out all the empty spaces. I'm not very good at clutter, but when it comes to exteriors and stuff, I usually try to make everything look very fleshed out. Also, fun fact, I always incorporate that little wall decoration for a garden hose in practically all of my builds, and I think that's because my mom has a green thumb, so she's super into gardening, and we have a hose in the front of and the back of our houses, or our real house in real life. So I always incorporate at least one garden hose, just because I think it's a nice touch and it looks really realistic, especially if you have things like this garden that I set up here on the side of the house. Makes sense to have some kind of access to a source of water to water the plants, even then of course in The Sims you're not really going to be able to water your landscaped plants unless you planted it yourself in those like garden planters. So yeah, but it does make the house look a little bit more realistic. How many times did I say that throughout this video? I'm sorry guys, this is my very first audio recording, so I hope I'm not being too repetitive since it is my first time, so I apologize if I am. But I hope you guys haven't gotten too bored yet. Anyway, so I'm pretty much done with the exterior here. I think we're going to start working on the interior after I add some finishing touches to the outside. And like I said, we started out with a completely wooden floor that was like a dark brown, but we ended up changing it a little bit later in the build. I think I started laying down furniture first, and then I changed the flooring. But you guys will see how it changes the entire interior of the house. I was really trying to work with the brown, but the brown was just not working with me. So yeah, we're just doing some finishing touches here. I always add this little clutter to my benches on the outside just 'cause I think it looks a little bit more like homey. I always add that freaking book. It's a base game book, but I always add it to most of my builds. I think I do that subconsciously because in real life, I like to read and draw and write. So all throughout my high school and college years, I always had a book on me, whether it was like a sketchbook, an actual book that I was reading, or a notebook for like notes and stuff during college. So I think that's why I'm always putting them in my builds. Now you guys won't be able to unsee it whenever you guys watch my speed build. But anyway, I digress. So now we're just working on the living room here. This is a little console that I've incorporated into some builds in the past. I don't think I've done them in a speed build, but if you guys go on my Instagram, or if you guys are familiar with my gallery uploads, I usually have this console in every so often throughout my builds. Just looks really, like, it's a kind of, I guess you can call it like custom furniture, but I incorporate this specific setup into my builds to fill up big spaces just because I feel like it does take up a portion of larger walls. And if you guys aren't familiar with my build style, I am not a big fan of clutter for myself only. I love seeing other builders incorporate clutter into the builds, but I just don't think I'm very good at it, so I don't do it. But that's why I end up like putting a lot of like what's the word, like space takers along walls and such, because I like to make spaces feel fleshed out and filled out. But yeah, clutter is so difficult for me because I'm so indecisive, so it always takes me forever to clutter, so I usually don't do too much of that. But if you do like that, props to you, and props to you even more if you can build like that, because I'm terrible at it with the base game. I think it's because when I first started playing The Sims, I only used custom content, so now when I look at base game items, it's so hard for me to clutter things up, especially because I'm a very like matchy person, and I like to match like textures and colors, and oh gosh, the base game, let me just tell you, makes it really hard to do that. So that's why I usually avoid doing too much clutter in most of my builds. I like to do like enough to make it look a little bit homey and lived in, but if you guys are wondering why it looks a little bit stark or plain, that's just my build style. So I hope you guys can appreciate it or like it or dislike it. You know, it's your preference. So now we're working on the living room here, and I think in a couple of seconds you guys are going to see this is where I ended up changing the floor. I was like, ooh, this light furniture is not working for that brown floor, but it ends up changing the entire look when I end up changing the floorboards for this build. So now we're just working on the little accents. This was just the little entryway, so we just put a little like coat rack there. I think we put like a shoe rack there as well, and then we're just filling out some empty spaces throughout the crooks and corners of the house. And then, yep, like I said, there are the shoes, adding a little bit more details here. And then I'm wondering when exactly did I put down the floorboards, but you guys will see it completely brightens up the space. I think I changed the wallpaper as well. So there we go, and then we put a backsplash of stone in the kitchen and throughout the living room. And then for the kitchen here, I just did a orange tone just because this house that I just built for a like growing / smallish family. So there's 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms, but I think we had a shared room for girls, a teens room, and then parents room. So realistically, this house could possibly fit anywhere from like 4 to 6 Sims max. There is space for a newborn child as well as a toddler, and then a child sim or teen sim, and then another teen sim for 2 children sim, or you guys can mix and match the family size. But yeah, you can fit up to like 4 to 6 Sims realistically in here comfortably. Anything more than that, you're probably going to have to add extra beds or extra space. But I feel like all the rooms give enough space for expansion, I guess you could say, or family expansion, if you guys want to have a larger family. So I just chose the color orange just because since this is a family home, I just wanted it to be bright and airy. That's why I really love that huge counter space that I made. I really like the idea of having a nice open kitchen for families to come in and spend time together, which is hilarious because when you actually play The Sims, I feel like they never actually use the counters unless it's like the kids with the homework. I don't know if that's changed because I don't actually really play the Sims for gameplay anymore. I like to stick to building now. But you'll see here I end up adding a high chair here and a couple of more little details to this kitchen. And then it looks a little bit dreary right now, but I promise you when I change the flooring, it'll look a little bit better. So, and then I ended up trying to put this like calendar on the side of the fridge, but I was just not having the snap to grid thing, and I was just not about to delete things and re-add them for that calendar. And then here in this little corner, I was going to make a little like reading corner, but I already had those bookshelves in the living room, so I ended up just putting a little lamp there. So this is just a little filler space. I actually thought of something funny when I built this little corner. Like, it's like the chair of shame when your teenager comes home in the middle of the night and their dad's there and clicks on the light, or their mom or their guardian. So that's why that's there. I thought it was hilarious. So that's a little chair of shame. If you come home late, you're gonna make dad stay up and be angry, or mom stay up and be angry. Anyway, so here, we're just adding a couple more finishing touches to the kitchen. I like to add little rugs there that are like non-slip. And then this is just a rather plain bathroom, since this is going to be like the guest bathroom / the teens room bathroom. The first floor, I think I put the teens room down there, and then the upstairs bedroom would be the master bedroom, and then the shared children's room. So for this bedroom, I ended up doing a space theme. So this one can be either a boy or girl's room, but it had this little space theme going on. So you're gonna see a lot of like space decorations and space decorations and themes throughout the room. I think I ended up adding a little baby Yoda in there as well. Thought that was pretty cute. And then here we're just adding the shared bathroom between the top two bedrooms. So this one has a little bit more to it. There's like a little toddler's training potty? Training potty? Did I say it right? So yeah, this one's rather plain as well, but it has a little bit more oomph than the downstairs bathroom just because this one is shared. I don't remember if I ended up changing the wallpaper coloring here or if I left it plain, but bathrooms are probably my least favorite part of the house unless I'm building a larger house, just because, I just feel like they just end up looking very repetitive throughout builds, so I don't try too much throughout the bathrooms. And also the bathroom items through Basegame, not great. So I'm sorry if it looks a little bit too plain for you, but I hope you end up liking the house at the very end anyway. So now I just worked on the little foyer area there. And now we're moving on to the shared girls' room. So this one is my favorite room. I ended up adding a bunk bed, which unfortunately is not functional, but I did end up, I think I play tested the bottom bunk, and then that one's actually usable. The top one isn't, but then there's also a toddler bed in there as well. And then in the parents' room, we ended up putting a baby's crib. So realistically, this family could have a newborn child, and then you can fit another sim in this room as well as a toddler sim in the shared room here, and then another sim on the bottom floor. So here's the bunk bed that I was talking about. Like I said, top bunk doesn't function, but the bottom one does. And then we also had a toddler's bed in there as well. But I really, really like this room because it was my first time trying to build a bunk bed. I actually saw Simlissy post a bunk bed in one of her builds, and I thought it was so cute. So that's where I got the information. That's where I got the inspiration from. And then that's a little toddler bed I was talking about. But I really ended up liking this room just because I had a bunk bed when I was a kid. So this kind of just brings me back. So this is just the shared girls' room. So that's their little desk for their studying area. I think I added like a dollhouse here. And then for the parents' room, that one wasn't really my favorite room. I think that's probably my least favorite room in the house just because it was pretty plain. The layout wasn't great, but I feel like I always do a lot of like neutral bedrooms for parents in my builds. So this one I just tried to be a little bit more, I guess you'd say, like clean and unobstructed. So there's just like a baby's crib. It's very plain just because I try to keep my parents' rooms as neutral as possible in case it's like a mother or a father or any kind of like grandparent or guardian. So I don't try to put too much personality in the parents' rooms unless I really have an idea of like who the parents are, just in case, whenever you move your adult sim into this house, you can customize it as you wish. So that one ends up being, like I said, a little bit more on the plain side for me. But I really do like this wallpaper. I think I abused it when I first started playing The Sims 4. It was my most favorite wallpaper because I wasn't thrilled about everything else in the game. But yeah, just a very simple navy blue and white room. We added an easel there, and then I think we also added that little painting rack for a little bit of personality, and then we ended up adding a little crib there for a newborn sim if you have parent sims that are trying for children. So then we added a little reading corner here, and then you guys are going to see me add the crib in a little bit, and then we're finally going to start working on the teens room, which is my second favorite room because I thoroughly enjoy space. So whenever I end up doing a teens room, I always end up incorporating space, especially if it's like a boys' teen room. I just think that's like such like a teenish thing to like I guess you could say, or maybe that's just me. Is that just me? Did I just make that up? But I think maybe it's because I really like space. I've taken a couple of classes in college that really fascinated me. So whenever I do family builds, I think I always end up incorporating like a little boys room and then a teen girls room. So that's why I ended up trying to switch it up here. I ended up doing a teen boys room and then, you know, like a toddler / children's room for shared girls. So now we're working on the teens room here. I love that bed because it has the most options, but then I also hate it because it's the most uncomfortable for gameplay, but I just stuck with it here. So now we're just fleshing out this room. This one's going to have probably the most clutter in the house just because that's typically how teenagers are. It's funny that I hate building with clutter, but in real life, I'm a very cluttered person. Like, my room looks like, not just like this, but I have a ton of clutter all over my room just to make it look a little bit more homey and lived in. But for some reason, when I build, that's just not the case. It ends up looking like a show house instead of like a house that's actually lived in. I don't know why I'm being so self-deprecating right now. But anyway, now we're just finishing off this room here. I think I added a laptop. By the way, I did play test this room. I don't know if I mentioned earlier in the video, but the bed, you need to move forward a little bit in this room specifically. And even though I did add the laptop there, the clutter on the desk does interfere with gameplay. So you guys are probably going to have to make some adjustments if you do want to be able to use that laptop. But there also is a secondary computer on the parents' room on the second floor. So not necessarily completely necessary, but that's just there for show, I guess you could say. And then after this room, I believe we end up moving into the exterior of the house again, just to double check that everything is perfect. And then yep, added that little baby Yoda there. I only used it in a build like once or twice, so that was a little bit exciting for me. So like I said, now we're just going through the rest of the house and we're just adding the final touches here and there. So I think I bounced back quite a bit between the different rooms of the house from the interior to the exterior. And like I said, I'm not too great at clutter, so if you guys see a lot of repetitive items, I'm literally just using it to fill in space. And then now we're moving into the backyard. We're just doing a little bit of decorating here. I always like to incorporate fun backyard or outdoor spaces for families to hang out, just because that's how I grew up. We always had little spaces and patios for, like, you know, just different places for the families to gather, even though your Sims probably realistically won't really be using those spaces, but I like building them anyway. I think it makes houses look so much cuter. And then, yep, we're just going around the build, just adding just things here and there, and I think we finally moved to the front of the house where I added a fence to make it look a little bit more suburban and have that like curb appeal. And it looks like we are approaching the end of the video here. You guys are going to see me play with the fencing here. But we are about to begin the fly-throughs of the house in just a few moments. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed my very first voiceover and of my speed build. And yeah, hope it wasn't too boring for you guys. I really appreciate you guys for watching till the end and for supporting me and for making this YouTube channel possible. I had so much fun. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!